Hello and welcome to another episode of BTech. Today we're going to be talking about turning our sprinkler system from an old kit that had a timer on it to something that's actually controlled by the Apple HomeKit, and doing it without a HomeKit sprinkler system module though, doing it just with a regular old on-off smart plug, then using the HomeKit app to control timing and duration. So let me show you how I'm going to do that. There are some limitations to this. You can't control different zones independently, but hopefully the system is a lot more robust. And I'm going to show you some of the problems that it overcomes with the original system that was installed. So the original system installed was this Watermaster. This was the controller that was installed, and it was in the house when we moved in, and it was kind of working, but it immediately stopped working pretty quickly. And what happened was it blew a fuse. So it has one fuse, and the way this system works is that it gets a 24 volt AC input. This is a 24 volt AC transformer. It goes from 120 volt AC to 24 volt AC, and that 24 volt AC is sent out to different solenoid valves that open the water to different zones in the yard. This would control the time of day that happens and how long each of those valves is open. There's some AA batteries in here to serve as the power for the timer. So even when the power goes down, which is actually a nice feature, the timer does not need to be reset. One of the things that I noticed with this is only one zone can be on at a time. So it would cycle through the different zones. So if you have 5 zones on for 5 minutes, that's 25 minutes total. The problem with this that happened was that with the people that originally installed it, they wired 2 of the zones in parallel and then wired it to one here. Well, that's a problem is because that causes twice as much current to flow through that single zone. And combined with the slow blow fuse that this thing used, when those solenoids began to go bad, because they eventually do go bad, they decrease in their resistance. And as they decrease in their resistance, the current goes up pretty dramatically. Now, if there's only one solenoid, what I've seen happen here is it goes from 40 ohms resistance at baseline down to 10 ohms. So that does quadruple the current. But it's still within the safe zone for this. The fuse will slowly blow, and you won't have any problems. Now, the issue that this thing ran into, and I didn't know until this happened, was that because 2 of the zones are wired together, that meant that when the 2 solenoids started going bad, this doubled that effect, and it overloaded the board. Now, I consider that a little bit of a design flaw in this system, because it should have been set up to use a fuse or some type of current limiting system that even when the current increased rapidly protected the board, but I guess they also weren't expecting people to be wiring these solenoids together. So what happened is this thing, see the brown stain of death here, this thing uses these MOSFETs switch the current on and off for each zone. You can see this one's totally blown out and burned up. As well as a few other components that got overloaded. And the problem is these were really kind of built to only handle the current that's expected to go through them. Typically, at least when I design things, I like to give a safety gap of several fold, where even if the current doubled or tripled or even quadrupled, it would still be able to handle it without any issue. I don't think that's how these were built though, based on, oh, we're just falling apart now. Oh, let's see what's inside of it. There we go. It's all burned up, so it's kind of hard to see. Anyway, it couldn't handle it, and I'd rather see it be a little bit more robust than that. Anyway, that was the situation. So in replacing this, I said, you know what, I'd rather just have something that I could easily control with HomeKit, something that I don't need to worry about the timer going off, and something that ultimately can handle these solenoids when they go bad without burning up. So what we ended up doing, let me show you. So we ended up getting a CCTV 24 volt power supply. Put a link in the description. This thing comes off Amazon. I think it was like $100. Now inside we have an extremely robust transformer that can handle total current up to 10 amps. The system I just showed you Before, the fuse was actually only a 0.75 amp fuse, meaning that that thing probably couldn't handle more than 0.75 amps. This system can handle 10 amps, over an order of magnitude more, which is quite nice. Now, in addition to that, I hate it when something's fused overall instead of being fused on an individual circuit basis. Each individual channel, on which there are obviously numerous, is individually fused. It's fused using a PTC, which is also nice because if it goes over current, it'll cut the circuit, and when the draw on it goes back to normal limits, then it'll open back up. And I believe these are at 1.5 amps each, so they can also handle a bit more for cutting. Now, we have 5 different zones, and I did unwire the 2 that were in parallel. It just makes no sense. There were plenty of wires to go out and run 2 different zones with 2 different channels. I don't know why they did that. That was the real Achilles heel of how this was set up. This is the common rail, which is all wired together. You can see in the wiring diagram here. And then on the other side of the AC, we have the one that's fused using the PTC, as well as an LED to show that it is currently getting power. We have all 5 zones, including the common, running out, and then labeled here, running into the different zones, which goes down and out to the different sprinkler zones. I used YUs to connect them together to make it easy to connect and unconnect them. And then to protect them going in, we use some shrink wrap. Now, I have a different surge protector I'm installing here in a few minutes, so this thing got way too much going on. But just for testing, we plug these things in, and you can see that we're just using my favorite Phillips that I've tested before, and shows can it handle pretty extreme loads, way beyond the 1800 max watt that it's rated at. I'll put a link in the description to the video where I power test these things. In addition to this, maintaining 100% connectivity. I've never had one lose connectivity, which is also what I really like about them. Don't like the $30 a piece price tag, but I'm willing to pay for something that works beyond what's advertised and doesn't cause me any headache. So I have this on the HomeKit app set to go off for 5 minutes at sunset each day. So at sunset, this will turn on, powers up all the zones simultaneously for 5 minutes. Obviously, with a system like this, you're not going to be able to power zones independently. We could run a bunch of different switches and relays to do that, but for me, I've never had the different zones run for different amounts of time, so this works perfectly. This is going to be able to handle way more current than this system's going to throw at it. It's going to be able to handle a situation where the solenoids go bad, which they all eventually do, have to be replaced. And it's going to make it really easy to have overcurrent protection that switches back without even needing an extra fuse. We'll do a long-term report on this after using it, but long-term report for something like this is probably going to wait over a year, so that might take a while. Just keep that in mind. But so far, I'm extremely happy with this system. So far, I can say I recommend doing something like this. Now, there are more sophisticated kits out there that allow all sorts of programming features that this does not have. We could, set up our own programming system, but again, for me, I didn't really care about all those sophisticated features. What I cared about was having something that was really robust and able to handle the overcurrent situations that come up with failing solenoids, and really have something that's robust enough to last for many, many years. Now, if you're going to replace one of these, the way to get them off is you simply just unscrew them. So this is manually how you turn it on. Typically, you only need to turn it like a quarter turn and it's on. But after you turn your sprinkler system off, you can very easily just unscrew these. Then you can make sure to pull the handle off because they do not come with new handles. Once you pull the handle off, then you are good to go. You can see you can run the wires under the handle like that, or you can just pull them to the top. It really doesn't matter, to tell you the truth, unless for some reason your system has not much slack in the wire. And put it back on, you just screw it back on. You don't have to be too tight, just do it until it's tight. And then there we go, we have our wires, and then we can wire it. So here, they weren't consistent, the people that originally installed this. So for this particular one, the white is the common, and then the switched side, the non-common side, one of these gets blue, one of these gets red. I have it marked out for the way I want it so I can keep track of it, but you do it the way you want to do it. Up front, they used the red as common. I recommend, if you are putting the whole system in yourself, to choose a color to always use as common, to keep it consistent, but I didn't install it, and I'm not about to rerun the wires just because of that, but it was confusing when I was still working on this. So let's get these wired up. All right, now we're gonna install the new one. To install, you just wanna pull the cap off, and then what we're gonna do is we're gonna get these wires unwound real quick. All right, now we get the wires unwound. Put our handle through the wires, or the wires through the handle like that. And then it doesn't really matter what the orientation is, as long as it goes on there. And then you can see it has these clips. Make sure it's clipped evenly all around. Then we just screw it clockwise on until it's tight. This is the same thing as your manual. You can manually turn these on just by loosening it a little bit, but never take it all the way off. And of course, unless your sprinkler system is, the water system's turned off, or it will just run your system at full speed and you'll lose a lot of water. All right, there we go, it's tight. So now we get these ones wired up and we are good to go. All right, now we're gonna do the wiring. Because we have to take these on and off, because they do break, as you saw, I do prefer to just use the YGUs, as they call them. So we're just gonna give the wires a good twist to keep them clean. And then what we're gonna do is we have to run 2 of these, doesn't matter which one, just as long as it's one from each one, together for the common. So for these, we're gonna twist these together. And then we're gonna take one of these 1-to-1 YGU connectors, go ahead and make sure that's good in there, which it is. And then we're gonna run the common over here, which is the white. Again, it's got a nice solid connection. And now I got 2 more YGUs, 1 for each one. I fold the wire over on itself so it's got a bit more grip for the YGU. And then what we want to do is clean up the wires a little bit. And then there we go. Now we're all done. You had to test these if you think one is going bad. Obviously, if it goes bad, it stops working. So you just need a multimeter. You don't need one this nice. You just need something that can measure resistance. So we're gonna set our multimeter in ohms. Maybe you can see it if I go like that. I always test them real quick. Here's the one obviously I use too much because I have a bent probe. You can see I'm at close to 0 ohms, 0.2, my baseline. So to test it, you just have to hold one end of the solenoid, one wire, the solenoid on one of these, one on the other end. You can see we're at 19 ohms. When these things are new, they're at 40 ohms. So when they start dropping significantly from 40 ohms, maybe, I don't know, 35, 30 ohms, I don't know exactly what the threshold is, but it means they're going bad and that at some point they're bad. The reason this is happening is because on the inside there's a bunch of wire wrapped around to make the magnetic induction field to pull the valve, and those wires have thin insulation, and over time with heating and moisture the insulation wears through and the wires connect to each other, shortening the path, which then lowers the resistance, and eventually it can't make the magnetic field that it needs to move the valve. It's like another one. This one's at 41 ohms. This one's good. So with the old ones, you know, they pot these in there with a bunch of epoxy to seal them, so really you just have to throw them away when they're done. And that's how you test them. So we keep the good ones around as spares. I have part of this video showing how to take these off. It's very easy though. You see they screw in. The important thing is to first turn off the water to your sprinkler system. Once you do that, then you can start rotating these. The first quarter turn, they're actually opening the valve. This is a manual way of opening the water to the zone, and then you keep turning them and then it'll just screw out. To keep water running through your system. That's why you want to turn the system off first. If you don't care about water going through your system, then that's no problem. All right, so I'll put this in my selection of good spares. All right, now we want to turn our sprinkler back on. All right. So here is one of the sprinkler pieces. Let's turn on the sprinkler using HomeKit thing here. It's your sprinkler. Sprinkler is on. Yeah, we can turn it off. And I did in fact clean up this power strip. Till next time.